Yes, we're ready. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Independence City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 at 6:30 in the evening, and the sun is shining, although there is a risk of snow in the morning. Oh,
Sounds good. Well, thank you. Thank you for some feedback.
yeah. Okay, it's still Tuesday, April 11th, 2023, and it is still sunny outside. So anyway, thank you. I'll let the record show that councilors are all here and present, and council members, you have the minutes from the March 28th meeting in your packet. Do they meet with your approval?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Councilors, I'm going to make a slight change. I'm going to have a motion for action after Chief Stang speaks to us today, and so I just want to let you know that will happen. Chief, it's to you. Thank you for taking the time to come and visit with us this evening, and you and your welcome.
Thank you. While I introduce myself, I'm gonna pass out a document here that I do not think made it in your packet. I get kind of nervous to hand out bright colored documents to people before I start talking because they like to look at them a lot, but you all know what you're doing, so I'm gonna take the risk here. My name is Ben Stang. I'm the fire chief, Polk County Fire District number 2. With me is Mike Lipsmeyer. Mike is our board president. He's been with us, rounding up his second 4-year term with us. So just to tell you all, I know you're at least somewhat familiar with our fire district, but we're a fire district organized under ORS 478, which means we have a publicly elected board of directors. We tax the people within our taxing jurisdiction. We serve about 185 square miles of fire and 206 of ambulance service area. So our main station, you're all familiar with, it smells like pancakes a lot of the time, and sometimes probably pass through here in Independence. And then we have 3 all-volunteer stations. Those are located in Buena Vista, out in Airlie, and also in Peay. We also serve a little bit of Marion County here on the other side of the river, down River Road and Riverside Drive. I want to talk a little bit about the way we run calls, the way we operate, so that I can talk to you about this upcoming levy and what our deficiencies are and why we're going to be going for what we're going for. We currently, just to kind of jump ahead a little bit, we currently have a 19-cent per thousand operating levy. So we had that levy initially in 2014. That was renewed by voters at the same rate in 2018, so 5 years ago. And then we're asked for that renewal for an increase to take place this time. So let me talk to you about what we do, how we do it, where the issues that we're running into are. So we have a total of 48 suppression volunteers right now. So those are straight home responding volunteer firefighters. Awesome. We have another about half a dozen people who just volunteer in sort of support services. Those are our sort of surge capacity personnel. Every day, 24 hours a day, we're served by 4 firefighter paramedics, and they operate out of our station here in Independence. So I want to talk about EMS calls, or medical calls, but first I want to talk about kind of the other batch of calls. About 25% of our calls are not EMS. So those would be fires, carbon monoxide alarms, fire alarms, public service things, all those types of calls make up about 25% of our calls. Within that are the fires. And our standard for fires here in this community, and I presented to this council, but it's been a few years, COVID kind of messed us up. But our goal in this town is to have 6 firefighters on scene within 9 minutes. That's what we want to do. Now we have to have 4 legally. The OSHA requires us to have 4 because if we're going to put somebody into an environment that we can't live in, if we're going to put 2 people in because they have to have a buddy, we have to have 2 people out in case something goes wrong. That's 4, and then we need somebody to pump the fire engine, and we need somebody to be in control of everything. Paying attention to safety, getting more resources, all that sort of thing. So that's our standard to have 6 within 9 minutes. Obviously, with 4 people on duty 24/7, that's a very tough standard to meet if we don't have chief officers around, a volunteer who happens to be there, things like that. So we, that's that side of it. The other side, and the side that I really need to talk a lot about, is our EMS side, our emergency medical services side. That we have a lot more than our structure fires, where we don't have a big sample size, right? We treated over 2,300 patients last year. So we have a pretty large sample size of medical patients that we see. Our goal for that in this community is to have an ambulance on scene within 8 minutes, 90% of the time. And like I said, all 4 of our people that we have on shift 24/7 are certified level paramedic. So that's not the EMT basic or advanced or intermediate. That's the full, can do the whole scope of practice, advanced airways, intubations, cricothyrotomies, needle decompressions, all kinds of cardiac medications, everything. So those are the people going and responding in this community to our emergency medical calls. So again, I just want to reference those, that 8 minutes, I'm sorry, within 8 minutes, 90% of the time. So now let me talk about where our issue lies. And I want to talk mostly about the medical thing, because that's our big sample size. Last year, when it was us responding, we have a great station, it's in a great location, we can reach both communities, Monmouth and Independence, pretty well. It was our ambulance that got called on a 911 emergency lights and sirens call. We got there in 8 minutes, 92% of the time. So we met the standard. However, and I'm going to jump back a little bit, 10 years ago, we were running about 1,900 calls a year. Last year, we ran 3,600 calls. So we had an increase in call volume of 85%. Now, those calls have to go somewhere, right? But we can't just drop off a patient on the side of the road. We have to complete the call. We have to sit at the hospital. We have to hand off. We have to drive back. We have to do all those things. So also 10 years ago, 18% of our calls were overlapping. Last year, 45% of our calls were, 43% of our calls were overlapping. So we've increased our call volume so high that now they're overlapping with one another. And while if it's our ambulance that gets to you, it's going to get to you in 8 minutes, 92% of the time. Last year, 359 times we had to call for mutual aid ambulances. Those are ambulances from Dallas, from Southwest Polk, from Salem. We had ambulances from Kaiser, from Albany, responding to this community. So when those are factored in, while we can get there 92% of the time, overall that number drops to 83% of the time, because the call volume has increased so substantially that we can't meet that metric without increasing our staffing. And so that's where we got. And so that's what I want to talk to you about what this levy does, because it's going to do 3 very specific things. First of all, we love going to the schools. We love being with the kids and all this. This is not for public education. It's not to increase any sort of administrative personnel. The number one thing that it's going to do, and the most impactful one, is to add firefighter EMTs to all the shifts. So instead of only being able to cover 2 ambulances, we'll eventually be able to cover 3 ambulances, or 1 ambulance with 4 people on the fire engine. We can actually make entry, or 2 ambulances and still get a minimal crew on a fire engine for a carbon monoxide alarm or something like that. So that's the big thing, is increasing that staffing so that we can assure that we're able to serve these communities with the ambulance and fire responses. We're not relying every day on mutual aid partners. The second thing, this last year, we got a grant from the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office to increase our capacity specific to the summer months. And what we chose to do was really focus on those summer days, midday, specific hours. And what we did was we hired some of our volunteers who are either self-employed or who are in school. And on those, especially on those red flag warning days, like the one up here on Vita Springs, right? We have some increased capacity, because that's when our call volume is picking up. That's when there's higher threats of fire danger and all those things. So we want to be able to do that every summer and increase. The cost is not high because these are seasonal people. It's a great way to get our volunteers folded in, to keep them engaged, offer them some incentives. And the third and final thing is that during the life of this levy, we're going to have 2 ambulances that reach their end of service. So ambulances are extremely expensive, as you'll see in that paperwork. They have things like, they have electronics for IV pumps and for suction units and radios and computers and oxygen delivery systems, refrigerated medication units, medication lockers, all kinds of things on them. So those are the 3 items that this levy would specifically do: increase our capacity to handle the increased call volume, the seasonal capacity with some seasonal firefighters, And then lastly, being able to purchase those ambulances that are reaching the end of their life. And I'm going to let President Litzmeyer speak a little bit to sort of the board's decision and increasing levy that amount.
Good evening and welcome to City Council.
Excuse me?
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here and be able to share my thoughts with you. So the board took this decision of this levy, which is a significant increase over past, very seriously. We struggled with, what level of support to ask the community. I think we had 5 or 6 different models, and even the model that pulled the levy, I think the 44 cent per thousand levy still didn't even get us to maintaining our current level of service at 83% response rate. It was, you were going to see degradation there as well in our response times in our service. And so we took a great deal of time thinking about the options of, how much is too much, how much do we need to ask for to provide the service that the community has come to expect. And we started with it, and we landed on this number of 78 cents. We didn't take it lightly, we gave it a great deal of consideration, but there's just no other way, given all the other economic factors that are in the way for us to serve the community and provide the services that you come to expect. So I don't have much to add to that.
There is one thing that's I think significant that I did forget to mention. I was talking about 8 minutes, 90% of the time. I read reference that that's not just our internal standard. That's actually the county when they assign ambulance service areas. That's their expectation, and it's also in rule under OHA that for a population density of this, that's what the expectation is of what will be provided. So again, that's the expectation. And so with all the numbers, the board kept coming back and saying, so would that have worked last year? And if it wouldn't have worked last year, how is that going to work in 5 years? So that's how we came to this number. And yeah, Councilor Rhodes.
I'm sorry, did you say that we're going from 19 cents to a proposed 78
To
cents?
78, yes.
Additional questions? Please, Councilor Court.
I want to thank you and your non-emergency staff for showing up and changing my smoke detector batteries. Really appreciate it. Didn't expect a truck, but I really appreciate it. What created the 85% increase in cost?
So this has to do with utilization, and a lot of that has to do with the way, and I'll try to keep it not super lengthy, but what people want, what people expect from the service, and the second thing is the aging population. So I was conflicted. I read something the other day that said that we should expect a call volume increase to keep pace with population. We've been tracking what our call volumes are, and obviously population has not increased by 85%. So what we expected 10 years ago was out of 100 people, we received 8 calls for services. Last year, out of 100 people, we got 13 calls for service. So it's not a population increase necessarily. It's more the demographics, the utilization, the way people are accessing the healthcare system.
That's a good segue to my next question. I suspect you and your staff interact a lot with our senior community. And I'm wondering if you would be open to sharing your thoughts with Barbara Cronin and I, so we're working on trying to get an AARP level community designation for our community.
Absolutely. We've partnered with the Mama Senior Center on some other things also, in Falls Prevention Week and other things. So absolutely.
Thank you.
Additional questions for the presenter?
So I'm curious, having a previous career in insurance, I know that there are levels associated with your home insurance based on the community in which you live, response time of your local fire department, how the proximity of your home. I know at one point the community was a 4, I think at one point we moved up to a 2. And based on you've mentioned some aging equipment, I know that that's one of the criteria that affects that as well. Do you know where we are in the city?
We were at 4 until it was 2 years ago. We worked and we managed to get back to a 3. Yes.
Great. Last call. Thank you, gentlemen. We really do appreciate you, and I hope that you'll stay for a little bit longer in our way. Thank you. Thank you. Council members, I have circulated a motion for you because this is a ballot measure. Yet It wasn't able to be in your packet because, city staff can't be involved with that. But I put a motion in front of you because we've seen two presentations in the last, several meetings, one from, Polk County Fire Number 1 and also for the, Polk County Public Safety, with the sheriff coming in. And so, if anybody would like to move that recommendation that I distributed to you, I think that would be good.
I would love to.
Please
I have
do.
a question though first. I'm trying to figure out what what is the average cost a taxpayer pays currently, the average for independence for the levy that you currently pay at 19 cents, how much increase is that gonna be for the average person to
I did that calculation for my house,
right,
about $10 increase. And personally, for $10 a month, that's pretty cheap security.
So there's other people who are getting older.
Yeah, not me.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to you, Councilmember Pelosi, because I think you're going to make a motion.
I would love to. I move that the Independent City Council support the Polk County Fire District Number 1 local option levy and the Polk County Public Safety levy. These measures are important to the health and safety of residents throughout the region. We urge residents to support these two measures.
second,
I have a motion second by Councilor Cour. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in and presenting. We're proud to be able to support both levies. With that, I'm going to invite Polk County Commissioner Lyle Mordhorst and his friends to the podium to make a presentation on the Highway 22 and 51 interchange. And Commissioner, I'll let you provide a little backdrop why these gentlemen are here with you. So to you, sir.
Listen, thank you, and thank you for having us tonight. Highway 22 and 51 has been a problem since 2000 when it had capacity. 2006 is when this study started. Today is 2023, so we are looking at 17 current years of studying this intersection, trying to get something done. I'm really excited to let these guys give a presentation where we're at today. We have done a lot of work in the last 3.5 years. Getting to this point, we're hoping that we can get this through to F. And it's just a matter of time and then construction eventually in time. So I'm enjoying it. We have Ed Chamberlain with Evans Associates. And then Kumar Retson, which is the project coordinator for ODA. Gentlemen.
Gentlemen, welcome to the Independent City Council. We're glad you're here this evening. To you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. As Lyle mentioned, my name is Kumar. And Chamberlain with the PA. They're our consultant partners for this project. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the project and the history and the background. So like Lyle was saying, this project has been around for 23 years. I guess it was first funded in 2003. In 2010, they completed the expression management plan. To put that simply, it's basically a transport document which lays out the foundations and the plans and projects for this corridor. If you can see on the screen in orange, you probably have the presentation, but it outlines the safety problems which you study between Dokesbury Road and Rickville Road. This is a corridor where we have identified a high crash location, specifically 22 and North Oak Grove Road, South Oak Grove Road. These are consistently being split sites. So split sites are just segments of road in our road network which should consistently show high crash rates. There's a number of issues which exist in this corridor. One of the biggest troubles, biggest issues that is in this corridor is we have really high west moving and east moving traffic. In this location, there's a number of local businesses, local residences, and local roads, which are all trying to come off this. People are turning left to go into businesses, they're trying to go up into driveways. And so when you've got a mixture of really high moving traffic, fast moving traffic, with high mainland flows, you're going to get these incidents. And that's why this segment should consistently shine to me as a suicide. And so one of the things I want to talk about is mobility. Mobility is how we move goods, safety, goods, people, freight around the state safely. And at this location, we have good issue, things through this corridor safely. So the purpose of this project is to address those mobility issues. And as I said, the primary issue that we're trying to address at this location is that left turn. So people turning left on driveways, people trying to turn left down to Independence. I think as you all know, travel along the road, coming down to Independence on an afternoon, it's challenging to make that left turn. And I think it's challenging throughout the whole day. It's everything different, more challenging. And like I was saying, this particular corridor, particular intersection, reached its mobility target many years ago. So basically it's reached its capacity. And what it means, when it reaches capacity means that people find it harder to make those left turns. They take risk, they have to make faster moves. It becomes more and more difficult for people to make those turns. So we started looking at doing a couple of different projects in this corridor in 2015. So that's really when we started development. And what we wanted to do was to bring life from the transportation management plan and put it into actionable projects in 2015. Once we started development and what the transportation plan specifically laid out, had this corridor was to build an interchange and a set of access roads. And the purpose of the access roads and the interchanges, the access roads would serve the local traffic and businesses, while interchange would then connect up to these access roads and then facilitate people moving up and over 22, taking that ad grade element out of the project. And so 2015, we started work. We had to stop work because we found some instability on the hillside, on the north side, Highway 22. Polk County was working with us to do the first part of the access road, which was to line Riggs Street all the way to Tewksbury Road across to Riggs Street. And then ODOT was going to complete the other section of access road, which was going to go from Riggs Street across to 50, which is where the storage, a couple of other large businesses. That was going to be the first part of the project. So when we found the instability issues, we advised Polk County to put a hold on their projects so we could look at that hillside more closely. That type of work takes a long time. And so we have to look at how a hillside or a slide will move over many years to see what it's, how it's going to move in the future. And that will enable us to predict and design better. So what we did during that time was investigated back in 2020. We looked at separable projects. Now, knowing that there's still an issue there, there's always been an issue there. We looked at how can we parcel projects into smaller portions. And maybe there's a discrete part of the project we could do here that would result in an actual safety outcome. And what we did, we looked at Tewksbury Road, 22 and 51. We looked at maybe separating out those projects without those access roads. But what we always came back to is that if we did one part of the project here, we moved the problem down. We did it on this side, we moved the problem down. And so after many years, many projects, now we decided to combine 3 projects together and look at it in a consolidated way that needs to be looked at. So that's where we are now with this current iteration of the project. Next slide, please. So we're still looking to build an interchange and access roads on the north and south side of OR22. We're working with our stakeholders, our county, been working with businesses, residents, all different stakeholders over the last 2 years to really flesh out what this is going to look like We had an online open house in November where we reached out to general members of the public to give feedback on our interchange design and also talk a little bit about the access roads. So we're going to go back to the public to talk more in more detail about access roads late spring, early summer this year. So we're going to look a little bit more detail on that in the slides coming up.
Mark, can I just ask a quick question? How far off 22 would the access road be?
So there's a number of, like, are you talking along the highway?
I mean, the distance between 22 and the access road. Are they running parallel to 22?
It varies. Some will be frontage, some will be backage roads.
Okay.
Frontage meaning going right up against 22, backage meaning being separated a little bit further. We have a map to share with you, so you'll be able to see a little bit of that.
Thank you.
Doesn't have an aerial, so you don't go to kind of see, but you'll see approximate routes. So, as I said, we're working really hard over the next 18 months with our consultant partner to get the layout, to get the access road rights. We're only funded for design, so it doesn't mean we have construction or funding to purchase property for right of way. As part of this process of what we're doing now, it's going to lay out what our overall cost looks like. Get an interchange and access road layout, which is, you know, vetted by the community, vetted by our engineering team, and really bring everyone on board as part of the process. Once we have that, then we'll be able to work out phasing, how it will be phased. And the phasing is a really important part of the project because having a project of this size is going to be very expensive. Phasing it enables us to take out discrete parts of the project and to fund it in a stepwise. So that's where we're at. Next slide, please. I'm going to hand it over to Ed, who's going to tell us a little bit about the evaluation criteria.
Thanks, Kumar. So as we go through the process we're in right now, we're trying to select the recommended option to carry forward, particularly for the interchange first and the access roads following. These are some of the criteria that we consider as we go through that selection process. First one there is the elements of the roadway design itself. The traffic considerations as we go through the traffic analysis and where the volumes are and different turning movements. The right-of-way process, which is, you know, how many properties we may impact, either business or residential. Sometimes it's a strip take, sometimes it may be a full take. So we try to quantify those as we compare alternatives. And then lastly, on this slide, the environmental impacts, which has various considerations that we are required to consider as we look at different alternatives.
How is the community identified that you think will be affected and how are they communicated with?
That's a good question. So there's a public involvement piece to the project, and ODOT does a boundary of communications for that, and they send out postcards and newsletters for that. And I believe the communities of Independence, Monmouth, and Dallas are included in that. And then circle radius around the project itself. I don't know exactly what that radius is, but we could find out if you're interested in that.
So we use tools like Dot Delivery, Nextdoor. There's all different ways in which we can get our message out to the public. We have our website, so our mailers go out to help bring people, Facebook, just all different types of PI tools which we utilize to try and bring people. And the hardest thing, you can get people to the website, getting people to comment and get their engagement. So that's what we really try and work hard to do. When it comes to, you know, people's properties which are personally impacted, Ed and myself, we went out and, you know, canvassed all the businesses in the area that were impacted or that showed an interest. So we reached out, and whether they wanted to meet with us, they told us how they use their properties, what type of vehicles. So all that goes into the consideration of how we design our roads, how we, you know, maintain access. Whole county as a partner, you know, they want to maintain the businesses in that area, and we want to continue to maintain the business in that area. We're not in the business of putting people out of business, so we want to try and, where we can, make sure that our plans work for as many people as no doubt this project impacts, but sometimes we try our best.
One of the best ways to stay in touch is if they go to the website and sign up for the email list. And so then they'll get the immediate email blast when things are happening. Next slide. So at the interchange there at Oregon 2251, there's 4 options that we were considering originally. One is called the Dog Bone Interchange, which is a name that describes it. One's called the Northwest Loop, the Northeast Loop, and the Dual Loop. The top 2 were recommended to move forward for further design. The bottom 2 have so far been dismissed. Next slide. This is a image of the Dog Bone Interchange, kind of a conceptual drawing. It looks often like a diamond interchange, which is just a simple on and off kind of interchange, traditional style. The difference here is that it has a roundabout at the 2 ramp intersections there. That's what that circle represents. And by definition, that's what a dog bone interchange is. So that's our leading option at this time. Next slide. This one's called the Northwest Loop. It changes that westbound exit to a loop ramp. You can see there. And that loop ramp then feeds into sort of a free flow movement come over the top of the interchange. Very similar to Rick Railroad interchange on Oregon 22 just down the street. Next slide. All right.
So again, a little bit about access roads. You'll hear this term a lot. Some people use access roads, some people use frontage roads, some people use backage roads. They're all essentially the same thing. Again, the definition between a frontage and a backage, one being one that goes right up against the highway, one which is set on the highway. And as we show in the next slide, you'll see where it kind of comes in and out. We don't like to make lines or squiggly for no reason. There's a lot of constraints in which we work with, especially up there. There's landslides, there's wetlands, there's historic property, there's archaeological sites, limited right of way, and where we can fit roads without impacting too many people. So this is one of the challenges of this project, and why it's been left behind for so long, is it's a really hard, it's a really challenging project to build and to design. Probably why it's the only part of 22 which is an access control. Again, next slide, please. So again, we've got access roads on the north side and the south side. We're working through that process at the moment. We've done a lot of work on the interchange itself. A lot of the previous projects that this area have done all the environmental research, so we're able to bring that first to the public. The access roads to the west, to the east of the interchange is less studied, so that's kind of the work that we're doing now. And to do a lot more of the environmental investigations that is required to really verify what was laid out in the expressway management and to see if it's actually feasible. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, might be a bit hard for some of the people in the audience to see, but at least in the handouts, you have a copy of that. You can see that the roads go in and out. We're not planning on building all of these roads. It will be one of the many options. I guess there's different alignments for different roads. If you're building one of those options, pending our research, what we get from feedback from the public. So this is what we're looking at. So it looks confusing and it looks challenging, but once we have it laid out, it will be much more easy to follow.
Generally speaking, there'll be one road on the north side of 22, and then one road on the south side of 22. And there's a median barrier going down the middle of 22 to control the left turns. So that's why there's a need for one on the north side and the south side.
Keep going. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is just, I guess, a little bit of detail about the north side, northeast side, connecting to Ferry Road, going across to 50th, and then we either go up, that's 52nd through Astor, through some existing properties, which I guess is unnamed on that road there, and then down 15th Avenue for the people in the north side. Next slide. Again, similarly, we've got on the south east quadrant, 22 and 51. Some of the roads use the railroad grade or previous along the front, which would be mostly frontage road, just because we're constrained by the river at that location. So that's really it's really challenging to try and fit a road in between the existing highway without moving it up. And also the north side, we've got the hillside, so it's a really tight fit to try and get that road in. Next slide. The northwest, I guess the northwest quadrant, one of the key issues is the Brunk House location. It's a historic property, very relevant to this area. And so part of what we need to do, we can't impact the Brunk House itself. And not only the house, but it's the historical context is really important. How it used to be used, and part of the significance of Brunk House is that it faces the highway, because that's how people historically went into Brunk's Corner and accessed that property. So while helping the project, we have to avoid that as all possible, and that includes even straightening out the highway to create room in front, because one of the things we looked at was actually trying to build a driveway to the back of the property, but that's not in how, I guess, not in the context of how it's previously used. So we have to, as part of the NEPA process, maintain access in front of the property. And then on the west side or southwest side, probably maybe the easiest, I don't know if it's easy, but probably the least impactful is that there's a handful of properties which face the highway, which would connect an access road and then go by south of the Grove Road to connect all of the south. Okay, so our next step, as I mentioned, we'll be working with our stakeholders, going out to the community in late spring, early summer to talk about the access road with a lot more detail, share with them how, get their opinions on the different routes, and we'll be showing some of the impacts as well, more detail than what they're showing now. And that's about it. There's a website. Thank you for having us today.
Are there council members, do you have some questions, since we have people that are working on this in front of us, because this makes a pretty big impact, because so many of us are up and out from 22 down to 51. It's a huge impact for us, and so that's why I've asked these folks to come today, and they're also going to be speaking in our sister cities. But do people have additional questions? I'll start over here, Councilor
Well, I
Courtney.
know you haven't made the decision on the access road yet, but do you have a sense of how far out of somebody's way they would have to go to get where they need to be if they use one of the access roads?
I think it depends on where you're starting and where you're coming from. So let's just take, for example, the Pentacle Theatre. If you were accessing to go to the Pentacle Theatre, you would turn up 52nd on 22. What we'd be looking to do is have a right in potentially, I think it's 50th. So there would be a little bit of out of direction travel, say for the Pentacle Theatre. If you were coming out from the Pentacle Theatre, say going back towards Salem, we would then route you through to the interchange and then to come back around onto Highway 22. So there is going to be some out of direction travel depending on where you're starting and where you're finishing. But what you're going to avoid is having to try and avoid having to take a risk and making a risky left turn. So it's going to be safer. There is going to be out of direction travel, but I think once people get used to it, I think it's going to be a much safer method of travel.
That'll be me. I get stuck on access road all the time.
The nice thing about,
See it.
the nice thing about this, once the interchange is built, you'll go straight over the interchange, go up north and drop back down onto it.
Okay.
You'll never have to go on.
The cookie crumbs out there, but no problem.
I think generally it'd probably be like a 4 to 8 minute out of,
Okay.
depending on where you're at.
Okay.
Additional questions?
Yes.
Councilor, go ahead.
So mine,
I would be interested in seeing the elevation changes on this map, so I can see, the different heights that you would have to travel in the road. I have great concern with the families and businesses in the area. I mean, I picture you working near the Drunk House. So that is, I'm pretty serious. But no, in all seriousness, I really have compassion for those people out there and just make sure, I know something probably has to be done, but right now you're saying it's gonna be a 4 to 8 minute detour for me, and I've never waited more than 30 seconds to turn left on that road, me personally. So I guess for me, we really need to make sure that this isn't hurting those people in that community in order to have this change, because again, I'm picturing the flood zone on the south and the hill on the north, and trying to picture how you can do this without devastating some long-established families in our community and businesses.
So we've had some great outreach. So the three of us met with every business on site to understand and hear their concerns. And then we gave them kind of ideas, but we want to hear their ideas as well. And then the residents also of Briggs and all through that hill, we've sent emails, we had a video, we had an open house, we got to meet with us in person. So we had 15 meetings probably in person for each one of those residents and businesses one-on-one, and they've been open communication the entire time. Because that's my whole goal. We want to protect the businesses that we have and those employers. And then I do not want to disrupt somebody's home that's lived there for 35 years. There's families lived there for 35 years. We want to make sure we protect them and have the least amount of impact as possible. And these guys have been very cognitive of that. They've listened right alongside me. I've been very impressed with the teamwork in getting these resolved. But the bottom line is, this is a safety issue. That was a safety corridor for years. And then we lost the safety corridor, and then the speed shot right back up. But the accidents that we've all witnessed through there and experienced, and I know Chief Stanley, you and your team have gone there several times, and we want to just resolve this so moms and dads and kids can get home.
So, since Chief, you want to take a moment and, because we talked a little bit in advance, you want to tell us a little bit about, because we talked a little bit about business reroutings and safety. You want to talk a little bit about the impact of this area on your staff and the staff in the region?
Yeah, and I'll point out, that's not, so we stop right this side of the bridge, that you go over right before you get to that. So that is not how you go on as a mutual aid partner on that. So as far as statistics, I don't know, to just add a little bit of color, and I hope this is okay for me to talk about, but, I think about the different responses there. There was one I'm just grateful I wasn't on with, unfortunately, a young pregnant woman who was full term, who was trapped in a vehicle and was alive when the crews got there, and it was a prolonged extrication, and they could tell that by the time they got her out, she would pass away. So they brought surgeons out for example hospital to see, is there anything we can do to, do some amputation, try to get her to at least, save the child. And unfortunately, they were both fatalities. And so, when you look at these statistics, and I don't know what they are, but I remember that's one. That's just one right there. And then I think about our responders, and most of them being volunteers who were on that incident, who are getting that tone, that dispatch the next month or the next week, that same intersection, and leaving their families, and then getting their family in the car, their wife, their husband, their kids, and driving through that intersection and having that memory. And so these crashes are, again, that's just one of them. And so just to add some context of the impact that these crashes have, not only on that family, which obviously extends very far, but on our other part of our community, which is our law enforcement, our fire and our EMS.
That accident would have been prevented if a left turn was prohibited.
That was caused by a left turn 22 to 51.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate you adding that, and because I know that makes a difference to so many of the volunteer districts around here, so appreciate that. Councilor Morton with a question.
Yes, mainly a comment. This is part of the nationwide challenge with infrastructure. But with the added aspect of safety, I was going to say that I've lived here long enough to have had several people that I have known very closely severely impacted by trying to make a left turn at that intersection and either being involved in serious bodily injuries that cut their life short or a fatality of some kind or another. I'd love to see this change. I thought we were doing pretty well for a while, but I watched my son as a brand new driver trying to go through that intersection when his clunky old car died, and I thought for sure it was going to be awful, but people at least were very aware of what was happening and slowed down. That's been back when it was a safety corridor, not when it is now.
My soccer team built pro, just so I would make it a left hand turn. That is not a good place to have that happen.
So I have a couple of questions for you, gentlemen. First of all, I'm afraid to ask this. Can you give me a ballpark of how much are we looking at the state, because it's a state project? How much are we talking about? Because everybody wants to know that. Can you give an order of magnitude, please? And we recognize it's ish and we got that.
I'm not going to answer that question, not because I don't want to, it's just because I don't know. And part of the work is to establish what that cost is. You know, we have some order of magnitude estimates, but to really give it context, I would prefer to wait to make sure we've done our homework.
That means you have to come back.
That's fine. I'm happy to do that.
The other comment I'd like to make is that in the graph that was presented, it shows at least 10 years till this is done, if not longer. I just want to express publicly, I have concerns about this. This is an issue that I've reported to this council on for a long time. And the fact that we're looking at more than 10 years, because there was an error at the end of your graph there. I just want to offer concern that 10 years is a long time, and I want this done before I'm dead. And you don't have to laugh out there. I really appreciate it. Just wanted to share that as a comment. And my final comment, I just want to publicly thank Commissioner Moorhorse. He took the ball on behalf of the county and helped move this forward. It had been stalled for any number of reasons. And I want to just publicly say he's been a dog with a bone, no pun intended here. And but he's really pressed and he's engaged. He's worked with all of us to help make sure that the information gets out and that this project is not forgotten. And now we just have to make sure that that ODOT knows how important this is, and we'll have to do that. Is everybody okay? I want to thank you for taking the time to come in. I really appreciate that. Thank you for informing us. And I know our community will be able to watch this on video now and see what's going on. So thank you very much for, did you? No, okay, that's good.
Can I have just one more minute?
Sure, yes, sir.
There's gonna be a lot of construction in your area this summer. Because Hoffman and Gun Club Road, the Safe Route to School project will happen this summer. And that's gonna be great for our kids. And then we just received the bids for 99W and Cloud, which will be kicking off in Kumar. Do you have an idea of the start date? They're gonna be starting at Orr's Corner first before they start the roundabout. But can you give us a start date? Probably expect construction.
Don't have an exact start date, but we're getting our low bidder confirmed, and so we're in the process of awarding it to that low bidder. So I would expect probably 3 to 4 months out, we'll start to see some work, probably around late June, early.
4th of July.
There we go. So,
There you go. Okay. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to join us. And thank you, Chief, for joining us on this tonight also. I'm going to keep us moving. That's okay. I have a little bit of a little bit longer report tonight. So please, I have a couple of proclamations I'm going to read right now, and then I have my report. First of all, my first proclamation here is in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas a holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing erosion in our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, and moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for homes, fuel for fire, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they're planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. So now therefore, I, John McArdle, Mayor of Independence, do hereby proclaim April 28th as Arbor Day in the City of Independence, and urge all our citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and further urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of this and future generations. So I just want you to know that. I also have a second proclamation. It's a little longer, and I'm going to read this. Whereas every child is entitled to love, caring, security, and protection from abuse, exploitation, neglect, and deserves a safe, stable, nurturing home and community. And whereas child abuse is one of society's most serious public health issues and affects millions of children nationwide. And whereas the devastating effect of emotional, physical, sexual, and verbal abuse can surpass immediate trauma and potentially last a lifetime. The victims of childhood abuse are at high risk for chronic mental and physical health issues such as depression, eating disorders, substance abuse, obesity, heart disease, and more. And whereas children are our most precious and vulnerable community members, and whereas families and communities can create a strong support network by providing safe and nurturing homes that are free of violence, abuse, and neglect, by extending helping hands to children and families in need, and by providing all children with opportunities that foster community connectedness and social emotional development. And whereas effective child abuse prevention strategies succeed because of partnerships created among community members, human service agencies, schools, faith communities, healthcare providers, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and business community. And whereas by working together, we can stem the tide of abuse and bring bright futures to our children. Now, therefore, I, John McArdle, Mayor of the City of Independence, do I hereby proclaim April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and call upon all community members, community agencies, faith organizations, medical facilities, elected leaders, and businesses to commit to preventing child abuse and support efforts to ensure the safety of every child. Together, we can create safe homes and strong families for our children. I just want to say, I know that some of you here on the dais are involved in working with young people and families that deal with this. I thank you for that. I know that the city has the little pinwheels out. I know there's some in my yard also with a sign. I just want folks to know that just being aware of this is really important. So I'm very proud to be able to issue that proclamation. And thank you for allowing me to share that with you.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add something very briefly?
Please.
As someone who does work in that field, I work with child welfare here in Polk County. One of the most important things can be intervention. And if you suspect or see something, please take a minute. The number for the Oregon Child and Elder Abuse Helpline is 855-503-7233. There's someone there that will listen. They'll get a hold of the local office if necessary. And like I said, intervention can be our best and greatest tool.
Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate that. Let me give you a little bit of report on what I've been up to. It's been a busy couple of weeks. Had the pleasure of recognizing the Independence Day's poster winner. We had an event, I think that was on the website already. It's a great poster. And I want to thank Councilor Corr and some of her friends for putting that together. That's a wonderful kickoff, and I really appreciate that. Had a chance to testify at the Capitol building on a legislative hearing in front of the House Economic Development Committee about funding from tourism for youth sporting events, and especially focused on rural communities. As many of you know, we had the trolley ribbon cutting. It's been great. If you haven't had a chance to ride, please do. I've been out, there have been lots of people writing in, and it's a wonderful addition to our community. On you've heard me report on our COG legislative meetings. We've been working to get funding to support local planning efforts for our community and others to get some funding to provide additional staff support. And so far, that's moving forward positively. We're never absolutely sure until the legislature's done, but we're hopeful that that'll come through, and we've seen some positive signs. I was an invited speaker a couple of days ago at a meeting with Congresswoman Salinas and the USDA Undersecretary for Rural Development, and got to speak about the obstacles in securing federal funding and what they need to do to make that process better. And we all talked, every small rural community talked about infrastructure. I also want to call out our city manager, Kenna West, because she was able to, as a city manager, representing city managers from around the state, also provide a boots on the ground comments about what it takes inside local governments to make federal funding work, what the challenges are, and what suggestions. And they want her to provide additional information because they were so taken with some of the examples that she provided. So she's sending some stuff on to DC at their request for how to do that. Recently, last week, there were 6 folks from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department that came through. We were able to show them, John and I and Kenna were able to show them the results of some of the investments they've made in our community over the years. We were also sharing with them plans for the future. They liked being here in Independence, and that was great. Had a chance this last weekend to be at the Veterans Memorial for the Veteran of the Month event on Saturday. It's a wonderful thing that's been going on for many months. I've had a chance to go to it several times, and it was just great. Today, we had Tour of Independence. Congresswoman Salinas came and spent an hour, and we showed her all sorts of parts of Independence and showed her projects that had federal connections, and that was good. And we talked about infrastructure needs because she heard about water, sewer, transportation earlier, and so we reminded her of that. Friday night, I got a chance to do a ride along with the Independence Police Department with Officer Gonzalez. And that was fun. Hadn't done that in a few years, and it was good to see. And we also had an appreciation event for Lois Martin, excuse me, who's a longtime museum volunteer and a master gardener. And she's moving up to be closer to some family, but she spent 20 years helping us. And so those are some of the things that yours truly has been involved in. And I wonder when my feet are tired. So with that, City Manager West, I think it's your presentation, then you would like to make the introduction for your staff presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. And then, do we have anybody on Zoom? No? Then with that, Mayor, I'll forego my normal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, a couple of things that I think our community and council will be interested in. The nesting with osprey exhibit at the museum has been extended until May 31st. And there is a video camera there that shows you the osprey, and the osprey is there. So go take a look. It's a really amazing exhibit. I've been through it. They did a fabulous job. And it's just a lot of fun. The next scheduled exhibit at the museum is Brave in the Attempt, celebrating 50 years of the Special Olympics, Oregon. It's a traveling exhibit, and I'm really excited to see that one. When I was in BC, we had the opportunity to talk to some of the Special Olympics folks, and I learned a lot that I had no idea. And I think this exhibit will be wonderful. So take a look at that when it gets here. I want to follow up on a couple of grants I know you know about, but I'm going to tell you again so our community can hear about them. We're really excited that we received a technical assistance grant from the United States Department of Transportation. In all honesty, we didn't think we would get it, but we tried anyway, because this grant will help us they'll hire consultants to come in and help us prepare for other grants. Federal grants for all of the transportation. And as the mayor said, infrastructure. And those federal grants are so important to everything we do. So this grant will help us prepare for more grants. We don't know exactly how much it is. What they're telling us is the consultant's going to do the job they do, and they think it's $200,000 to $400,000 value. We also did receive the Certified Local Government Grant in the sum of $17,000. This is a grant we receive almost annually. And what it does is it helps us provide design assistance for properties in our historic district and to complete review and compliance. And it's also how we present our historic preservation awards. So this is a fabulous grant for a community like ours where we have so many historic homes. Just a couple of things, not as much fun, but it's infrastructure. Due to supply chain issues, our 9th Street lift station project has been delayed. We hoped that it would mobilize in May, but it looks like August. Is that still? Yeah, March. Okay. So it's delayed a long time. We are still moving forward on the parking needs analysis. And because this is an ODOT funded project, they're the agency that chooses the contractor. We heard they have the contractor chosen, and they're working on the contracts for the contractor. Once those are done, then we'll start that process. I want to remind everybody that the community center digital survey is live. Last I talked to Emmanuel, we had 140 responses, I think, or 180 responses for that community center. And there is a workshop, there's a pop-up workshop for our community. It is on Thursday, April 13th from 6 to 7:30 in Hawk Hall at the Central School District office, which is at 750 South 5th Street. So for those folks who are watching this on YouTube, feel free to go. It is open to the public. We hope that you'll give us input into what we're going to do at the old school facility sites. That's all that I have here, other than, oh, I need to introduce Patrick. So Patrick is going to present for the library. As you know, this is something that, oh,
I just have one question on your survey.
yeah.
Can you fill that out more than once or just one per person?
Well, it's one per person, and then I believe we go through and we double check to make sure that we don't have duplicative or bots. Is that the correct term? So as you know, we adjusted a little bit so that you get to meet all of our department heads and hear directly from them what they're doing. And I'm really excited because I love the library and we have one of the best library directors in the state. So Patrick is going to let you know what's going on at this library, and if you want to come on up, you will believe me in having.
Boy, do I.
Good evening, welcome to council.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councilors. Thank you, Emmanuel, who's going to be my clicker, the slideshow. And thank you to my board members who are here. There's moral support behind me, so that works out good. I'm happy, I am really happy to be here and give you kind of an overview of what it is that we've had going on since I started the library in 2020 till now and into the future. Thank you. So the mission of the Independence Public Library is in order to meet the literary, educational, and social needs and desires of our citizens here, we provide current information, materials, and services. So basically, long story short, we have stuff, whether it's informational stuff or physical stuff or cultural stuff, relationship stuff, and we want our people to be able to use our stuff. And so that is why we're here. I'm happy to say that the library in general, public libraries are one of the last few places in the world where people can just come and be. There's no expectation that they're spending a certain amount of money. There's no expectation that they need to purchase something. There's no expectation that they need to do something or else they'll be run out. And we're happy to be that location here in Independence. So a little bit of where we've been and where we currently are. Just a reminder, I came to the city in June of 2020 because there was nothing else going on in the world. I figured it would be a good time to move across 2 states and start a new job here. When I started, our interim director / HR manager had been doing a great job of treading water. The library was currently shut down. We weren't open to the public at all. We actually hadn't started quarantining materials because we didn't have people turn them in yet. We were asking people to hold on to their stuff because everything was so unknown at that point. Eventually, we started quarantining in the back room. We paid attention to studies from the Institute of Museum and Library Services and universities on COVID transmission rates on various library materials, books, pages, DVDs, everything. And it was a lot. And Amanda was really, really sad when the hire happened and I came, I'm sure. We were also at a point when I started, our staff were working staggered shifts. There was just 2 people in the building at a time. Some people were working remotely 100%. We had just gotten new carpet installed, so that was really exciting. And once I started, we finally started offering curbside pickup. So June 2020, July 2020 is when the only services we offered where you had to call ahead or put things on hold. We would run out to a little table at the back. You would come out of your car after we went back into the library and we would hope you got your stuff and walk away. I'm happy to say that we opened up to the public shortly thereafter with limited hours. We've slowly increased those hours. We began with, computer use by appointment, for example, and then we were able to expand. One of the things that myself and my team prided ourselves on is that we, unlike other libraries, unfortunately, in the state and nation, we didn't have to yo-yo back and forth to say, okay, this is it, and then we had to take it away. We were able to just increase the amount of services, the amount of hours, the amount of things that we offered. And that was really, really good. In January of 2020 was when our last hour expansion happened, and that's where we're currently at. It's Monday through Friday, 11 to 6, and then Saturdays from 10 to 2. That's where our hours currently stand right now. As you all know, in March 2022, we went fine free, and we're excited with the growth that we've seen from that. These next few pages, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you our last complete report of library statistics that we were to submit to the state library, very, very briefly slimmed down. But also, since that report runs on our fiscal year, which is July to June, that means we've had 9-10 whole months since the last report. So I'm going to say this is what we said, but this is where we are in comparison to that, just so you can see where we're going and how we've been. So thank you. So on the last report, we had 3,000, just over 3,000 independents with the library card. We did see a big decrease, honestly, in library cards over the length of the pandemic. And that is because our system automatically removes people if they don't use their card for a certain amount of time. They're just viewed as inactive users and they're deleted from the system. It's really easy to reinstate, but over the time that we were closed, obviously people weren't able to come in, people weren't able to check things out, so they were quote unquote inactive. And they lost that privilege. They haven't renewed it yet. It is really, really easy to be considered active. All it means is checking something out or using the computer or downloading something or logging into one of our databases and saying, hey, this is my library card to prove that you're one of us. That's all it takes once every 3 years. There was just that lapse over that time. However, since July 1, we have seen almost 500, 460 people come with library cards. That's as of March, end of March. I know that personally today I helped 6 different people register for new library cards, so that number is growing every single day. Anecdotally, these are people that have recently moved to the city. These are people that, hey, mine has lapsed and I want to register again. And these are people that are, I've lived here forever and I've never been here. Let's use the library, and they're in for the first time with their grandkids or their children and get in there on that way. On average last year, we had 126 people visit the library each day. That is with up until March, only being open 3.5 days a week. We'll count Saturday as half a day. Tuesdays and Thursdays last year for 9 months, we were only open for computer use by appointment. So those numbers obviously went down. But this year so far, we've had over 35,000 people come to the library through the doors. And again, that's just through March. Next. Last year, we had 2,700 people come to our library programs. A lot of those were held in the park or jointly at the school. We were really, really excited for that. But thank you, Manuel. Next one. We are really, really excited that so far in these 9 months, we've had even more. We've already had over 100 different library programs this year. Everything from our mystery book group that people are very, very dedicated to attend once a month. They all read the same book, to watching the jugglers and the Aztec dancers in the park, to going to Independence elementary school and watching Angel Ocasio come and juggle and sing and dance and do the ukulele stuff and everything that we've got going on. It is good to have numbers again. Previously, we were counting all of our virtual programs that we did. So during COVID, we would record things and post them on our Facebook page or post them on YouTube, story times, things like that. But now we're able to actually see the people back in person, and it has been awesome. So a little bit on our collection size. Libraries are, like I said, we're always about stuff. And so we've been following our collection development policy to make sure that we're able to increase the right stuff, the relevant stuff. Over the past 5 years, the number of things, the stuff that we've had has increased over 26%. As of last year, we had 37,000 plus books, 9,000 plus videos, ebooks, audiobooks, all those things are there. A lot of those audiobooks are also the digital version there. So on that particular slide, e-audiobooks and physical audiobooks are combined. But just this year so far, we've been able to add that many number of items, ebooks, audiobooks. We have not yet done a giant e-audiobook purchase. That is usually done right at the end of school in June at the very end of the fiscal year. So that number will see a giant jump. But this is where we're at so far. I mentioned briefly, we have all these databases that are available. Our databases, not going to list them all, but this includes things like Ancestry, the Chilton's audio manuals, a subscription to the New York Times that people can access in the library. Canopy, which if you're not familiar with Canopy, it's amazing. You can download the app onto your smart TV. It's just like a Netflix thing, but you log in with your library card and you can watch unlimited children's programming, which is like the Reading Rainbow kind of books and stories that way, or a certain amount of views of everything from this documentary on the history of the life of the Buddha to UHF starring Weird Al Yankovic. It's all on there that you can download and watch that way. Thank you. And again, so we're averaging about the same, that 126 that we were a month so far, but we do tend to see a big spike at the end of the school year because that includes all of our databases that kids are using for research and things like that. So we anticipate that that number will go up towards the end of the fiscal year. Circulation, we did see, you know, even with being closed for most of the year. I wanted to put this in there because I was really interested that about 17% of our circulations were electronic, which is good for us because people are using it, and bad for us because ebooks and e-audios are enormously more expensive than the physical item. And so we're trying to do that balance of what we can afford and what we can see, what the people want that way. This year, on the other hand, we've already seen almost 49,000 items circulated. To give you a little bit of a comparison, I know full year versus partial year is hard to see, but over the same period of July to March last year to July to March this year, that is about a 14% increase on the amount of things that people have been coming and checking out with just to there. We were open almost 1,600 hours, not quite to where we were before I started, but always good to expand. Again, our current hours, Monday through Friday, 11 to 6, Saturday, 10 to 2. And we've been very, very grateful that with opening up again, we've been able to have our volunteers come back into the library. So far this year, they've donated over 600 hours to the library. And they're there to do limited library work because of patron privacy issues. They can't circulate items, they can't register patrons, but they are there to help shelf, and they are invaluable at our programs. If you were able to come by for the Public Works Day, you saw our volunteers handing out construction hats and directing kids to places and passing out hot dogs that we had. And there's no way that we could do what we do without all of our volunteers, so that the staff can focus on the quote unquote library work. Again, library is a place where people can access information. On the report last year, public computers were used. Oddly enough, the report was exactly 1,000 times, So we just put that number down, and we do have a dedicated IndyNet/lib hotspot, so we're able to track that specific hotspot usage there. As of this year, though, we've already had 1,800 uses plus of the computers just in 9 months. I'm really happy to say, just in this last month, we've helped people submit insurance claims, get their W-2s for taxes, process a public records request for a different city, so I couldn't call Karen, and type of resumes. And that is the most exciting one because I spent so much time with a gentleman who was typing up a resume to apply to Central School District. He came in today and I found out that he got the job because he was able to come and use the resources at the library. I also double checked with him that I could tell that story. So it is okay. He said, yes, please do. He's very excited. And also we've helped answer a clue or two about the USA Today crossword puzzle and helped kids play on Roblox and all those other things that computers are used for. So that's where we've been and that's where we are. A little bit about where we're going, specifically what we're looking forward to in the coming fiscal year. Obviously, if you've ever been to the library in the summer, you know that that is our busiest time of year. This Find Your Voice is our theme for this summer. And really the summer reading program exists so that we can prevent summer slide. It has been shown that children who don't read during the summer can lose up to 2 months of learning by the time that they return to school. And that children who do participate in summer reading programs and read a minimum of 6 books during that summer score higher in both reading and math when they return to school. More than 82 million children attend library programs each year. And last year was our highest attendance ever. We're excited to see that number get smashed out of the park this coming year. We also, over the last year in the fall of 2021, we received a Go Kids grant from OCF, which we used to purchase these computers and tablets that you can see there. They're early learning tablets. They've been extremely popular. And what they do is they have on them, they're not connected to the internet at all. They have downloaded programs in Stream because we're libraries, we have to have that for reading, but science, technology, reading, engineering, arts and music, and math. Just games. So kids are playing these games and not realizing that, hey, I'm actually learning to code, or hey, I have this keyboard and it's fun to make these silly sounds, but I'm learning how chords work and music progressions and things like that. We learned that this grant was renewed automatically. And so we are in the process right now. We are going to build a dedicated space. Instead of having those tables that you can see just in the corner, we've been working with some contractors to get designs up and go to bid for, to build a cottage looking situation. Think the Wicked, not the Wicked Witch, that is the wrong thing. Hansel and Gretel's witch, not really candy looking, but out in the woods, clubhouse looking thing with windows and skylights and a dedicated space that people can come to. We were also able to use those funds. You can see the backpacks there in the background and foreground. Those are our bilingual book bag kits that are geared for pre-K age kids. Everything from this is my first trip to the doctor to I'm gonna be a big brother to this is why I have dreams at night, or construction Legos. I mean, these are the things that every day we see those fly off the shelves. So we're able to refurbish and increase the number of those. And the plans for the house include little hooks and pegs that we can hang those on the outside of the cottage. So we'll get people to hanging out around that thing. Thank you. And we've also, as mentioned earlier, we're going to focus more on increasing our volunteers. Our volunteers help us to run, and especially with summer reading coming up, we're going to need to rely on them as much as possible. Really similarly to the presentation you heard from Natasha at the museum a few weeks ago, we are planning to expand our volunteer program, which will help us focus on the daily quote unquote library life and library work that we do. And we're also working to bring the library to the people. We've expected and anticipated that people come to us, but we want to be out in the public. We want to be at events. We want to have a presence. And we're especially working to bring back the home homebound delivery service. This has been a part of the library up to 15 to 20 years ago, and it has kind of gone away. But in speaking with the staff, this is something that we're able to do that has sprung from what we called our book grab bags during COVID. Moms would call at home, people would call and say, hey, I need 10 cozy mysteries or something. Just you pick for me and I will come and pick them up. We are looking to do the same thing, only bringing the library to the people. Gears are also in motion for what is hopefully a special project related to that outreach, but I don't have the official word yet. So that's the only teaser you'll get until I can come back and announce what that will be. And with that, thank you. Appreciate your time. Happy to chat with any of you outside of council. Please come to the library and sign up for summer reading. And you officially have 4 more days on your library bookmark challenge to come and win some prizes.
There you go. Great. Thank you very much for the presentation. I know we've got a couple action items, so I'm sure you can grab Patrick. He's at the library a lot. Mr. Fisher, I think it's to you. If you have a couple of action items for us this evening. And welcome to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the city council. I have one not so happy thing, and we'll try to get through that quickly and go on to the happier thing. The unhappy thing, and one of our least favorite tasks, is enforcement. Before you tonight, I have a nuisance abatement for defective sidewalks. All of our complaints are driven by community members. We don't go driving around looking for problems in the city. We've tried to get compliance with these properties since 2001, some since 2021, some since 2022. The code steps were provided in my staff report of what the staff is required to do and the steps we have to take. I do know from talking to Kenna that Sean has been actively trying to resurrect the HALO program, which is I don't know a lot about it because it actually stopped before I got here. But from what I understand, it gets contractors and people who want to learn a trade like doing sidewalk, an opportunity to do that. And it's all outside funded, it's not city funded. So he's been trying to get that resurrected and also find a funding source for that. Our recommendation is that you pass the resolution that allows us to move forward with the process of notifying the property owner that they have a certain amount of time to actually do this. Otherwise, the city's going to take it over. And when we get done with the costs, we pass an ordinance and the lien is applied to their property. We've tried all the branches and everything we can and giving them more than enough time to get these going, but we haven't with a few. There are a lot that did get it done, but we're kind of at our last holdouts. And I do want to tell you that now that I've been here for a while and I'm starting to get caught up on administrative stuff, we're going to kind of process these a little quicker and try to get folks to comply and give them as much help as we can to get them to get their sidewalks fixed. But if they don't, the repetition of me coming back and doing nuisance is going to increase until we get the problems resolved. Okay. Did you have any questions for me?
Questions for the presenter, please?
Yeah. Should I send out notices to the 27 owners about this meeting
No.
tonight? If it's passed, how long do they have to fix it? What is the time frame?
So we give them, I think it said 60 days. Yeah, 60 days to get the work done, which weather-wise is more than enough time, gives them a chance to go out, get their bids and get everything arranged, work with us to get the permits, get the inspections done and get them closed out.
Okay. Of the 27, how many are owner occupied and how many are rentals?
I don't have that information.
Okay, how many, well, I was wondering about like, just financial hardship is going to be my problem with it, but.
So these are sent to the property owners
Right.
who are the responsible party under our code.
Right. My concern is that they are not, rentals, that they are owner occupied. There's some differences on when the notices went out, so each of these people got at least one letter, is that right?
Yeah.
And some of them got letters 2 years ago, and some of them got letters a year ago. How do you decide like what? If they get 1 year, 2 years to comply, or I know some of these sidewalks have been going on for
Yeah.
15, 20 years, you know, I mean, it's been a long time.
So what initially happens is we'll get an any work or email, complaint.
Okay.
And what we
Is it the
do,
same person complaining about each of the houses or?
I don't have that information. It usually comes in from multiples.
Okay,
But what we do is we contact the property owner, let them know that there is an issue. Our crews actually go out and inspect. First thing, we verify that the complaint is valid. And then from that point on, we take it over, notify the property owner, let them know, hey, here's the code. Here's what it says. All property owners are responsible for their sidewalks and maintenance of their sidewalks. Here's the areas that need to be addressed. Please contact us. And then at that point, we can let them know, okay, here's a list of contractors in the area that you can use, and here's the process to do permits. Your contractor can actually handle all the permitting and inspection process, so they don't have to do anything.
if they acknowledge, like if this passes, which I'm assuming it will, if this passes and you give that notice to someone, can they say, hey, you know, can you give me a little bit longer? Are you willing to give them, you know, case by case basis, an extension to get it done before you fill in on their home?
Yes, the lien doesn't come until we actually have done the work and know what the total cost for that property is, and then we come back to you and say, they didn't do anything. We were forced to go out and make these improvements. And we actually bring it back as an ordinance to you to pass to apply the lien to the property, because the city has actually expended money on abating the issue.
Okay, and if you have to go that route, you're gonna try to do it as cheap as possible, so it's not normal.
Yeah, we'll do our regular process. We'll get the number of bids. We'll take them all in as much as we can to do all of the sidewalks that don't get it done, or the people that don't get it done. And we'll go out and get 3 quotes and lowest responsible bidder under our public contract.
And do they have to replant trees? Because I'm assuming most of it is root damage.
No, there's a mixture. I provided a whole bunch of pictures. Some of them are
Can't see the
just
whole thing.
yeah, some of them are just heaved sidewalks, some of them are related to trees. There's a bunch in here that it looks like the sidewalks were constructed 100 years ago, or the concrete they used just didn't last over time. They could be 40, 50 years old, but they just didn't hold up. So there's a mixture in here. The biggest ones that are of concern to me are the ones where they actually have a separation. It's a trip hazard and fall hazard. And some of them you can see the tree, and we're working with planning on if the tree needs to be removed to help expedite that with the property owner. And maybe that tree isn't the right tree for that location. Maybe it's not the tree that's actually on our current tree
Yeah, that was
planting
6th and
list.
7th Street.
Yeah, and so trying to resolve that issue so that we don't have a new tree go in and then over a period of time, the problem comes back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Court.
Are you able to provide a list of contractors? for
Yep.
residents?
Yeah, we have a list of local contractors that they can draw from, and they can get them off of the internet and phone book. So they're not restricted just to use those. They can use any of them.
Okay, well, I just say I would not know where to start. So
Yeah.
I would much prefer a professional tell me, you know, a good contractor or a good list of contractors.
Yeah, we have a list.
The Halo idea, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I know there's been some benefit from that in the past. But it's gonna take time to get that back in place currently, right? Is there any possibility of deferring some of this? If it becomes sure that the Halo program is gonna be funded, is there any possibility of deferring any of this?
I don't have any surety that, because it's a combination of getting, I think, local contractors that want to participate in people's interest in participating it and the funding. And I think we're a long ways off from that. There's a lot of these have been sitting around for 2 years or more. We've tried to get the compliance with.
I used to live on South Fourth Street, and there's a lot of owner facilitated construction on sidewalks, let's put it that way. And it doesn't last, clearly it doesn't last, and they have to keep doing it over and over again. But is there any prohibition on doing that? Is there any repercussion to doing that if they choose to do it themselves with some quick
They're not allowed to do work in the public right of way without a permit, and anybody working in the public right of way has to be a licensed contractor with the state.
Okay. So we have a lot of ghosts walking there now.
It's different on your private property. Once you enter into the public right of way, all the rules kick in.
Okay.
Additional questions, Counselor Schwartzman?
I have heard from several neighbors that are concerned with the condition of the sidewalks, especially in the work district, there isn't a lot of lighting. Worried about trip hazards, so I recognize that it's a problem. I also recognize as a homeowner that some people probably are hesitating over the cost of it. And I don't know if you've been able to get some feedback from some of the non-compliant people, if cost is their primary reason for not moving. They don't feel like they can move forward, they don't have funds to do it.
I haven't gotten any information back. Most of the contact has been with my executive administrative assistant, and in a lot of cases, they're just not responding back. A normal letter, a snail mail, a certified letter, no response back. No phone call, no inquiry, no, hey, I need help, nothing.
And I'm assuming that, if this ordinance passes, that, the homeowners that are listed here or the owners of the properties that are listed here will receive one more notification with the 60-day reply period or completion period.
So the first step is the passage of the resolution. We will send another letter out to them with a copy of the resolution, letting them know you have this long to do, that the council has taken action on this. And then we'll work with them to get, the ones that contact us, we'll work with them to get that done. If they need a little extra time and we know they're making progress, we'll work with them. If they don't do it, or there's no response back, then we'll move past the 60 days. We'll send them a notification saying, you didn't contact us, you didn't comply. We're moving forward with the.
That's what I was looking for, was due diligence on the
Yes.
resolution.
Yes.
Counselor Rowe, you had a question?
I'm just concerned that we haven't been consistent on our approach with getting a hold of people. So having a letter sent 2 years ago and a letter sent last year is not sufficient information for me. That someone who's been adequately prepared to solve this problem. My other concern is, a lot of these families have been in this community for decades. I recognize names on this list. And, life is hard right now. It really is. And I would like to think that, that maybe they're not doing this because they just financially can't. So I know when I was looking at getting a sidewalk installed, I couldn't believe the price it was to get it done. And if I was given a 60-day notice right now, I would fall to my knees in tears because every month with inflation, I have less money to spend. And so for me, this is hard to put this out on our community when I don't feel we've adequately prepared people for this step yet. And to put a lien against their home is very hard for me. And so I can't support this, even though I know it needs to be done. I feel that we need to inform people more. We need to exhaust all efforts that we all came up with in our goal setting, is to come up with something to fix the sidewalks in our community. And I would like to exhaust looking at those things, getting Halo looked at again, getting people looking at that type of program, because it's really going to benefit everybody in our community if we do that. But if these families are financially strapped and we put a lien on their home, I just don't feel like we're serving people with benefits.
Thank you. I have a question.
Yeah.
I know that, had some conversations with folks that, are mobility challenged. If we don't take action, do we have some ADA, are there some implications for us as a local government for not taking care of ADA compliance? And I'm not sure if that's for you or our manager. You look to either one.
I would say yes. If you've received an official complaint and our staff has gone out and verified that that complaint is valid, and we've gone through the process that's required under our code, and then we don't do something, Does it open us up to legal liability? Yeah. And I think our city attorney would probably agree, and CIS attorneys would agree too. What the level is, I have no idea. I'm not an attorney, but thank you. Yeah.
No, I was
Yeah.
making a lawyer joke there.
Yeah.
So additional questions? Go ahead. I was seeing that first.
I understand this and that we need to do something with it as the city. Is there a way that we can postpone this vote for a month or whatever and really get the notice out to people saying, hey, there is a city council meeting. This is what we're voting on. This is what we're gonna do if it's passed. This is what's gonna happen. And we're putting a lien on your property because I think sometimes people just throw away mail. There's a couple people that got emails, I think. And the rest of them got regular mail. And I don't know how many times you talked to these people, but just from what I saw in the packet, some of them was only once, it was one letter. So if there's multiple, you're reaching out to them multiple times, then, that documentation would be helpful for us too. But I don't want it to go too long if we're, liable and we need to have it fixed. Then I think one more effort to reach out to these people and say, hey, you're going to have a lien on your home.
Could we defer to the first meeting in June? That's a possibility.
Well, let's take care of the questions first. Did you have an additional question, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to finish up a little thoughts. So in terms of, I recognize that something needs to be done. And I also recognize that there's lots of other communities that the same issue pops up of who has liability, who has ownership, who has to do the repairs. But it does seem it would be beneficial for us to maybe look at some other options of creating like a sidewalk fund, especially if we are going to be promoting walkability within our core. The homeowners are putting their funding in to fix the sidewalks that the general public is using, right? So they don't have complete control over who's using their sidewalks. So I can see where it's sort of going for the community. I also recognize we have to have sidewalks in good condition. But I would encourage them to look at some other alternatives, maybe some of the ways that communities can address this besides having homeowners.
So I'm gonna guess that there's no more questions for the presenter and we want to get into discussion. Is that correct? Anybody have any questions for?
Yeah, I think it would qualify as a question. So, on the matter of liens, I'm assuming that we would then put a lien on the property for the cost of fixing that sidewalk that is incurred by the city. Is there interest that accrues over time, or does that balance just become due on the sale of it? Like any other lien?
Interest does accrue, and it's outlined in our code.
Okay,
Another question.
another question?
Depending on the amount of it, could you take possession of the house at some point?
I don't have an answer to that question. That's probably more of a legal city attorney question.
Hi, if I may.
No.
Gerald, how much could you usually cost? It's just, we're talking back and down.
For private property owner, you're probably looking at roughly, depending on the time of year, $5 to $8 per square foot to actually put the concrete down, and then there's a removal cost. So it could be anywhere from $7 to $10 per square foot to do that. And if it's my calculator, 5 by 5 panel, 25 times 10, $250 per panel.
And the panel being one of those sections.
Just one square. Yeah.
I would like to know your concrete guy because I just.
Yeah.
The prices so much that it's not even funny, because when I got quoted just for a 10 by 10 foot pad in my backyard, it was $12,000, which means I can't get shed. So to put a sidewalk in front of your house, even if it was 36, what is the standard width of sidewalk, 36 inches?
No, it's in the older sections, it's 5 feet. The current standard is 6 feet wide.
6 feet wide, and we have the 60-foot frontages in our houses. That's $10,000.
So even at 10,000, it's such a nominal amount. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it's nominal based on the value of the home. The chances of this being ever taking possession is very minimal. It's very,
Come up with
very,
10,000.
very.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna go Kathy Martin Willis next, then Councilor Roden, Counselor?
Well, I guess I would also point out that as they were kind of scrolling through the pictures, a lot of these sidewalks are not full frontage replacements. That oftentimes they are like 3 panels along an entire frontage. I know when we replaced ours, because we 20 years ago had a visit from code enforcement, and the city was very kind with us when our contractor said, there's no way I can get out there that quickly. I mean, we opted to go ahead and replace the full 50-foot frontage on our property, but it was not required by the city. I mean, we could have just replaced like the 3 significant sections, but just figured it would be better just to start fresh.
Counselor Roden, you had a comment.
Well, I was just gonna continue the time. I'm looking at these pictures, there's a lot of repeat pictures on the same street. So I can see that this is going to cause a lot of replacement in a lot of areas. So, and a lot of them are caused by trees and have utility poles in them and have, you know, utility access points in it. I could just see the costs. I think we're all on the same page. I think we all see the costs are just really high. I wish I had it on.
And
it's
with the little bit of a construction boom that we have going on and the lack of contractors, because we've lost a lot of contractors the last downturn. They're so inundated right now with new construction, for them to pull off, you're paying a premium. So even doing like a patio in a backyard, an existing house, they're working 7 days a week when the weather's decent.
And with what she was saying, you can't just do a section of the homeowner, you have to pay like 4.5 yard minimum to get the concrete truck out there. So you end up using half a load and then the other half goes to waste because you didn't need it, but you still have to pay for it.
I think I saw my city manager wanting to flag in. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to finish the answer with Councilor Joe. What usually happens is these rings will sit there and when the house sells, then the ring will pop up. They'll pop up, and then out of the sale proceeds, the ring will be paid off. So we don't look to take homes. It just sits there until the home sells.
Okay. Any additional conversation? This is an action item. What do people want to do?
I'd like to defer it and give some serious notice to these people stating they're working on your home.
But with a very reasonable timeline, you know, like a meeting in May, meeting in 1st of June,
Okay.
very late.
Does anybody object to moving this to our, this is April. I'm looking with, help me out here,
Next fiscal year, first meeting of.
or do you want to do it in June?
That's fine, we can do it in
I'm thinking about budget.
Yeah, I'm that's why I'm looking at you folks.
July. That way I
First
can
meeting in July.
get letters out that are much more detailed, and we can put together much more detail on what contact they had. Was it email? Was it phone call? You know, what contact our staff had, and bring that back to you for each one of the properties.
Is that okay with everybody? Does that sound like a strategy? Okay.
It'd be nice to have,
One at a time. Go ahead, Councilor Moore.
it would be nice to have everybody receive or attempt to at least deliver to them a registered or a certified letter. So you have signed evidence that they have received it.
They all go out certified. If I get a certified back as not signed, I resend out a certified and regular mail.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's the best I can do.
And Councilor Kerr, were you trying to get in?
Yes, and I would make sure to tell about a council meeting in that letter, but also I think it would be very helpful to explain the lien situation that we kind of just did. For a new homeowner that's not very savvy, it's gonna flip out into taking my house. But if it's something that's, it's almost like it's almost like we're subsidizing them, you know, by letting them put this off until the house sells. Now, if the house sells next year, too bad for them, they're gonna have to pay it, but if they don't sell the house for a decade, they've gotten the improvements done and they don't have to worry about paying for it until 10 years out. I don't think most people get that nuance, so I think it's really important.
They pay it back.
Yeah, you still pay it back, it's like,
Pay it back over time.
Okay,
Let
so
us know what the interest is on our vote. I don't know.
I'd have to look it
they'll
up.
get back.
I don't call, I apologize.
Yeah. So without objection, we'll move this over to the, what did we decide? Was it the first meeting in July? Okay, first meeting in July, and then, we'll take definitive, what I'm hearing everybody, and tell me if I'm out of the line here. We're gonna take definitive action then, because I wanna make sure that, our liabilities are, you know, we are on a timeline, we're gonna take some action. We're gonna give people the last benefit of the doubt and go from there. Everybody okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you. You wanna go on to the next item?
Yeah, and just last reminder on that, like I said, this is the least favorite thing that we have to do as far as city staff work goes. Next one's happy one. We have a contractor work in front of you for on-call city engineering services. Behind me is Shannon Williams and one of her associates from Keller Williams, or Keller Associates, and we advertised this in January. We received 3 proposals back. I got a lot of contact from a bunch of different engineering companies, and the ones that dropped out and decided not to submit, they were all in the same category of, I know the level of work you have coming and our current workload, there's no way that I can support that, so I'm just gonna go ahead and back out. And they were very upfront, honest about it, and I appreciate that. So we received 3 proposals. We ranked them internally with staff independently. That's kind of the way I do it. You go review it, and I'll review it, and we get back together and we see 1, 2, and 3. We all came back with the same scores as far as ranking. So I provided the ranking for you on the next page. Our recommendation is that you award the contract to Keller, and I've already talked to Shannon and told her that beeping sound she hears is the dump truck of projects I'm backing up and getting ready to dump on her. She says, it's okay, we're ready to go. We appreciate it if you could go ahead and authorize the execution of the contract.
Question for the presenter, if not, I take a motion.
I move to accept.
I have a question. Why do the state doesn't provide us with engineering?
No.
So, and, it's best to hire someone at call instead of hiring someone.
Yes, so there's 2 different ways you can do it. You can go out with an RFP for every single project you do and review all of the proposals for every single project that you send out on, which is an enormous amount of staff time. Or you can do an on-call service with a single engineer that is your clearinghouse for all projects. And they hire whatever expertise, if there's a special expertise like electrical or structural, they have resources they can bring in under their contract umbrella as sub-consultants. So they are the clearinghouse for our projects. We run the projects to them, the budgeted projects that you see in each one of the budgets that we bring forward in the capital improvement plan. And they do all the engineering work. They'll do the construction contract oversight, and we have another person that does inspection, and so they help us get projects done.
And if I may, the nice thing about the on-call is we could not staff enough engineers because we needed stormwater and streets and a water and a wastewater. Gerald's an engineer, he can't do all of those.
Really? You can't do it all good, but my bandwidth is not.
The number of engineers and the depth of their knowledge in those areas, particularly in a city like ours, where we're looking at a lot of infrastructure, you do need a large firm. I think Keller, if I may ask, Shannon, how many engineers does Keller have?
It has 160 people.
Okay, Counselor Joe, you had a question?
Am I allowed to talk about the proposals, scoring results?
You can ask me questions.
The service billing rates, those scores, does that mean they're more reasonably priced because of their score?
Yes, it's
No, like,
kind of market value. We look at, just because I work on the private side too, we look at what they're charging for individual engineers, surveyors, senior engineers, principals. We look at that and the whole board of what they charge on an hourly rate. Plus, we look at what do they charge for travel, what do they charge for producing materials, because we're the client, we pay for all of those things. And then I use that as when we go forward with a project, they give me a scheduled breakdown of all the work it would take to get that done, and I compare those two to make sure that we're getting billed the right amounts for the project.
That makes me feel better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Additional questions for the presenter? If not, this is an action item, please.
I move to accept the proposal for on-call engineering services and authorize the city manager to execute the contract and any change orders within the city budget.
Second,
Motion second, discussion.
Would like to see at some point during this, the money we saved by having an on-call engineer, because, you know, on a particular project, it would be nice to see that we're saving money on this at some point, if we can somehow show it in some sort of data that we collect, I would love to see that.
I can say that what you're saving, by having the on-call engineer versus doing the other option is you're saving anywhere from 3 to 6 months in time for every single project you do. And that's city staff time review, plus all of the stuff you have to go through to publish and advertise and follow all of the steps and give notices for notice of intent to award and everything.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. West, I think you have the next item.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
All right, I get the easy one because y'all were there. So we're talking about the adoption of the city council goals for 2023-25. As you know, we had spent an entire day, a pretty intense day, taking a look at what you felt was most important, based on your discussions with your community members, based on your thoughts, based on the 2040. We came up with the packet that you see that kind of lays it all out. They are some very broad goals, and they are our marching orders. It's these goals that we as staff, we're in the middle of doing our narratives for budget. We are looking at the 2040 goals and these goals, and we are trying to put together, we're going to take these staff and move forward with these goals, and these funds that we get and move forward with these goals. So we're doing what you're asking of us. For me, this is one of the most important documents that you provide to me, is my marching orders. So what I'm asking tonight is for you to adopt these marching orders so that we can continue the process, do what you want us to do, and continue to create this amazing community that you've been doing for the last hundreds of years.
Long time.
Long time.
So councilors, we spent a whole day working on this, and so this is just the outflow. So if somebody would like to declare action, that would be great.
I move that the council adopt the city independence council goals for 2023-2020.
A motion,
Second.
second, their discussion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Thank you very much. Announcements,
I have one there.
please do. I'm gonna just start down there. Is that okay?
Last meeting, I think it was, I mentioned that I'm working with Barbara Cronin at the senior center on an ARP livable community designation. I attended an age-friendly initiatives discussion at Western this afternoon, led by Dr. Melissa Cannon, who I believe is in gerontology chair. We discussed a lot of things about what Independence Monmouth are trying to do generally. And then we talked in detail, her class was present, by the way. We talked in detail about the kinds of ways that we think we can support seniors better in our community. As I mentioned to you, Kenna, Barbara's advisory board is going to do the bulk of the work on this project. But Dr. Cannon has also dedicated her class to do specific tasks associated with that. So Barbara would like to meet with you and I to discuss bringing this idea, as some kind of informational presentation against.
Great, thank you. Additional.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I have, first of all, the Independence Downtown Association has decided to host a school year end of school celebration on the 13th of June, which is the last day of school for the 22-23 school year. And interestingly, it's a Monday. And it will be from 3 to 5 downtown Independence involving some of the businesses. And I hear there will be potentially ice cream and prizes and games and whatever occurs. The museum is having a no-host celebration of 1 year of being open and doing a spectacular job. That will be May 5th at 6 o'clock at Golden Hop. Drop in and shake hands and say wahoo and eat and drink if you'd like to. And also, I've recently started doing some volunteering with Community Services Consortium, which is CSC, which is what Halo sort of evolved into. And there is a great deal of interest among their now student body of 74 students, which is really grown, of having an opportunity to shadow a council member or to be a youth voice as an adjunct to the council. And the first young lady who expressed an interest about it would have been here tonight, except she was having babysitter problems, and I understand those, or I used to.
Great. Just to let you know that June 13th is a council member meeting night, so that's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday, it's June 12th then.
There you go. Thank you.
Correctly.
No, so I just wanted to make sure, you know, I kind of know a little bit about June 13th. Please, Councilor Roden.
Thank you for the announcement, but I wanted to tell Patrick, before he left, how awesome I think the library is doing. And also I just had a meeting yesterday with some local school officials, and they're telling me that a lot of our student body is 2+ years behind in reading. So if I'm gonna go by and stop by the library, if we could get those audiobooks for teenagers included with a book that they can hear and read at the same time. I've been told that that helps kids learn to read, because we're having students who are 2 years behind and going into college next year, and it's devastating. So I'm just so encouraged by the library and all the work we're doing. So if we can encourage even teenagers to read books, I'd love to encourage that.
Great. Okay. Please do. Excuse me.
So we are having a business resource fair in Independence on Monday, May 22nd. And anyone who is thinking of starting in business, there will be resource providers throughout the county that will be there. We've got quite a list of people coming. So if you have any question about opening a business, thinking of business, there will be people there to help. Monday, May 22nd.
Great. Okay. Without objection,
Move to adjourn.
thank you. All in favor?